Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another edition of Flashpoint. Flashpoint is a television program of issues and ideas. And it's a television program that's brought to you by the Lawrence Debate Union, which is an endowed program at the University of Vermont that teaches UVM students the arts and skills of debating and then has them debate competitively and educationally against other sentient beings all over the world. And if you don't believe that, it's absolutely true. Big up to my man Lucas Carras, who was just top speaker at the Global Youth Debate Conclave in Bangalore, India. That's right, we bad. My name's Alfred C. Snider. I'm the Edwin W. Lawrence Professor of Forensics at the University of Vermont, and I'll be facilitating this descriptive event. With me are a couple of debaters for the University of Vermont program, but before I introduce them, I want you to know that if you need more Flashpoint, you can go to our website, debate.uvm.edu. Click on the Flashpoint icon there, and it will take you to dozens and dozens of Flashpoint programs, which will be available for on-demand viewing. And who will you be viewing? Young people like these. Let's meet our panelists for this week. On my left, I have Jacob Klein. Jacob, what's your major?
My major is nutrition and food science.
There you go.
All right.
And how long have you been at the University of Vermont?
I'm a junior. I've been here for 2.5 years.
All right. And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Plainfield, Vermont.
Plainfield, Vermont. I understand you're a farm boy and proud of it.
I am a farm boy.
And proud of it. All right, good. You seem to be pretty good with computers for a farm boy. Is that a false stereotype or?
You know, you never know when you have computer problems on the farm.
That's right, exactly. This is the 21st century.
Yeah.
On my right, I
got
have
a website.
I have Sam Ricker. And what's your major?
Anthropology.
Anthropology. And if you could go, where would you like to go most in the world to do an anthropological investigation?
Well, I'd like to do it right here at home because, to be honest, the way our society works confuses the hell out of me, and I just love to figure it out.
Great, very good. And I think we're both going to Cape Cod next weekend for a debate tournament, right? All three of us? Okay, well, let's wish ourselves the best of luck. And as we tape this today, our companions are out in Wichita, Kansas, debating at the Cross-Examination Debate Association National Tournament, and we're saying good luck to them.
Good luck, guys.
Go get them. Meanwhile, the show goes on. Show number 360, National ID Card. Well, when I was young, quite a while ago, there was this, science fiction stories would have people with magnetic cards, and it was their money and their ID and their travel pass and their everything. And I think we've gotten to some of that. We have cash cards, and we have airline cards, and we have charge cards, and we have driver's licenses, but things never got all put together into one national identification card. And it's not necessarily new that we have this move towards national ID. We've been trying to think about that in lurches and struggles over the last few years.
Absolutely. I mean, ever since the Social Security system was introduced in 1936, the government tried to assure people that this wasn't an identification number, this was an account number. But nowadays we see it being used for identification purposes. And there's been much legislation proposed to extend it to an ID, including legislation in 1971, 73, and 76, all of which were rejected. When Hillary Clinton, back when she was the First Lady, proposed this healthcare program, there was going to be a health ID card. And that notion scared people a lot. But now there's more of a call for an ID card in this post-9/11 world.
And there's a proposal now called the Real ID program that apparently, in order to do a bunch of different things, you need different kinds of IDs, right? That are verifiable and meet security and authorization standards. For example, to open a bank account, you would need
A driver's license.
a driver's license,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and to fly, you would need to have a state-issued ID,
Yeah.
or, okay.
At least a photo on your ID.
Right. Have you ever tried to use your university ID as one of these sort of things, even though it's state issued?
No.
Now, try getting on a plane with it sometime. There's also a proposal to standardize the kind of things that all states do for driver's licenses. So all driver's licenses would have specific kind of security controls on them, and maybe even these biometric devices, a chip to identify you as such. And they're asking for different kind of IDs at the border here, going to Canada. Any of you have experience with that?
It used to be like all you needed a driver's license to get across, but now you need to have a passport on you, and it's made a lot of trouble for Vermonters who live right on the border and have family across the border who don't even own passports. And they're gonna there's legislation going through in Vermont to change the IDs, the driver's license, so that it will have the biometric security card in it, so they can get across the border with just their driver's license.
And as part of the presidential campaign, there was an issue about aliens getting driver's licenses. What was that all about?
Well, you can just get a driver's license, I think, without even being a citizen. You don't have to prove citizenship to get a driver's license. You just have to prove residence.
Right, and at one point Hillary Clinton said she wouldn't necessarily give driver's licenses to aliens.
Yeah, because one of the issues is, an illegal immigrant with a driver's license gets in a car accident and has no insurance, the cost is then, deferred to everyone else. So there's that issue as well.
Or if you didn't give aliens driver's licenses, right? If they had an accident, they'd be more likely to flee. Right?
Yep.
Because they don't want to get caught and deported. And they're driving without a license because they don't have one, which could put them in a lot of trouble as well. Well, and other countries, a lot of other countries have a national identification. And it doesn't seem to be a big deal. I know that, Bojana has her Slovenian national ID card, and that's pretty crucial for her, and it seems to be okay for them. But Americans are kind of afraid of a national ID card. Let's talk about why they might be good. Why would we want to have a more secure ID system that's uniform for everyone?
Well, first off, the practical implication is if you standardize everything, you just present one ID when you buy liquor, when you get on a plane, when you go across the border, and this eliminates, a lot of conflicts between what certain states require and what, others don't. So if there was this, standardization, this would cut down on the sheer amount of, well, not bureaucracy, but definitely hassles.
Do you think it might lessen the number of fake IDs that people use? I mean, I understand fake IDs are fairly popular.
I think so.
In a college town.
I think so. I mean, rather than having, a bouncer or whatever evaluate how the ID looked, which is very easy to emulate how any ID looks, they would simply swipe it. And it would connect to a computer system managed by the government, and this would say this is a real ID or this is a fake ID. There's no question about it. So it would certainly make the ID processing much more effective.
Right, even if that wasn't done all the time, right, it might deter people from using fake IDs if they know they could get busted. Okay, what else?
Another reason is to prevent identity theft, because it is easy to replicate IDs, and it's easy to go and open new bank accounts and take out loans. So that would make it a very good reason to just end that, because it would be managed so that when somebody you started using an ID that had your name on it, an alert would instantly go out through the government and come right back to you and tell you, is this really you? It'll ask you. So that would work,
Why is this appealing to people in the post 9/11 security environment?
Well, I mean, the threat of terrorism has everyone scared, and the notion that these places that we are vulnerable, we're vulnerable in our ports and we're vulnerable in our airports, and people need, to feel safe. Even actually after 9/11, A software company in California called the Oracle Corporation proposed even lending its use of its software in order to help create this ID. So there's like a real push for it because people are feeling, less secure.
And there's just so much more
Would we be
computer
more
use.
secure? I mean, I noticed you were careful to say people would feel more secure, but would we actually be more secure?
Well, I mean, for all the reasons we've listed on being able to cut back on fake IDs, being able to make sure that only citizens get them, that would eliminate, some potential harm, but it doesn't accommodate for everything. And certainly, if people want to harm the United States, they're just going to work around within the system as we've seen before. So it's not going to, it's not going to help you be safer, but it's the placebo effect.
Jacob, you're really active in the computer movement at the university, and how do you think this plays out in an increasingly computerized world?
Well, you see a lot. To get into my dorm room, I'm going to have to swipe my student ID. To go buy food, I'm going to have to go swipe my student ID. But, it's a good system. It's efficient, and it's, it has a lot of advantages.
Does it make sense to have one system?
Yeah, in a certain extent it does, but if everything is dependent on one system, what is the backfall? What happens when somebody steals your ID? Do you come up and say, I lost my ID? And they're like, no, you didn't. It's still being used. And, you lost your identity. You're nobody.
Well, I imagine a DNA test would prove who you were eventually, but, your bank account might be empty at that point. Border crossing might be easier, right? They just swipe the ID, and right now it seems weird. I know when I come across the border from Mexico into California when I'm on vacation, they ask you a few questions, and they're sort of trying to feel you out. It seems very subjective. And, if I was a Muslim terrorist and I looked like this, I could probably get through without showing them anything. It's quite an interesting thing. So this might at least make it less of a subjective art of figuring out, and it might reduce racial profiling.
Yeah.
Right now people get racially profiled. Oh, you've got an ID, but you look kind of like a Mexican. So, or you're wearing a turban, or in this case it might be, look, dude, it doesn't matter how I look or what I'm wearing.
I got the card.
I got the card. My card matches with me. There's a fingerprint of my fingerprint on the card to prove it's me. So, okay. So lots of reasons in favor of it. Why does it always fail then? Why don't people support it?
People are afraid.
What are they afraid of?
They're afraid that the government will take over their lives and impede, restrictions on where they go and what they do. So I think people are a little hesitant about this because they don't know if the government can really do this fairly.
So we don't trust, it seems efficient, it seems standardized, but we don't want to trust the government with it because it's too efficient?
Well, people should distrust their government. People should be skeptical. It's your responsibility as a citizen to kind of question it. And the notion that the government has information on every aspect of your life in a database that they monitor, who's to say they're not going to abuse it? We've seen, the government does wiretapping on its own citizens, so I don't trust the government with everything about me in one convenient little identity card,
The thing people fail to realize is there already is tremendous amount of information being harvested about us every time we type in Google, every time we swipe our credit card, every time we do anything on a computer. Somebody is gathering that information and storing it.
Yeah, somebody's gathering it, but it's not one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not coming together into one database. And if you have lots and lots of databases, that's one thing. But once they get all put together, it seems like the possibility of using them for nefarious purposes is expanded. But and we're saying that the American people don't necessarily trust the government.
Well, I mean,
to avoid that temptation.
Yeah.
Okay, how about the Elliot Spitzer effect? Okay, here's a guy, governor of New York, and he's busted for this prostitution thing he was involved in, and it was basically an example of where, based on security law, they were investigating specific messages and specific phone messages, and then they start investigating this prostitution ring, and then he gets caught. Do you think that many Americans are like, well, which of us has never done anything wrong? And I'm not sure, I want to be busted for something I may have done wrong at some time. You know what I mean? And it's like, which of us is without sin, right? And if each of us could be caught and busted and, put at a disadvantage because of this, maybe it would be better off if people just didn't know.
Well, and it's with that mentality that, the government would hope people would, curb these behaviors and curb illegal activities. But it also means that, people view it as an infringement in their civil liberties. The right to do what you want with yourself. The government will just be able to find out what you're doing if it's illegal even faster. So in that sense, it's kind of a deterrent for this kind of behavior.
Now imagine this, like a cop comes up to you, you're not even doing anything bad. How would you feel if the cop says, I need to see your ID? If we had this national ID, you probably would have to show your ID. It probably would be against, they could probably arrest you for not carrying it or not having it with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so you show it to them and...
But that's still a violation of my rights.
Right, yeah.
I don't have to.
I wasn't doing anything. They should have
Yeah.
probable cause to have to do that. Okay, I have some other scenarios. Let's say, if you have one ID, then wouldn't it make sense to, and I'm going to call this the iPhone effect, right? Like you used to have MP3 player, camera, phone, PDA, internet, laptop, then they all get put together into the iPhone, right? Mm-hmm. So you can do all those things with that. Well, if we have a magnetic card for money and a magnetic card for our ID and a magnetic card to get in the dormitory, why don't we just have one, which is everything? And then, hey, I wouldn't need to have all this stuff in my wallet.
Well, you see that happening in Japan a lot.
Uh-huh.
Because what they are doing is they have taken cell phones, they've turned them into credit cards,
Swipe cards.
swipe cards you can get on a plane with a cell phone. It's essentially an ID. Mm-hmm. And
So it's an ID and it's money and it's your cell phone,
yeah.
right? Okay. Now, gentlemen, what's wrong with that?
Well, again, all the problems of putting all your eggs in one basket are just magnified even more when it's not just your identification, but it's your whole life. And I think it would actually lead to an increase in identity theft if this is suddenly people, hackers are smart, criminals are smart. If they want to do something, they're going to work around it, no matter what the government implements. And now with this one ID card, it's the one-stop shop to just steal someone's entire life. So.
In some ways, in cybernetic systems, you want to have diffused functions, right? So if one of them breaks down, the others can keep going. Well, maybe that's what we're talking about here. Instead of having one ID, where criminal elements, once they crack it, could have everything, right? If you have them dispersed, then maybe they steal. Maybe they use your Visa card, and then you find out about that and stop that, or maybe they use your social security number to do something, and you find out and stop about that. But at least it keeps the damage small and, and removed. So is the danger with this one, the Japanese cell phone automatic super ID, is that the danger with that? That once I can take this phone and put your ID in here, I can be you? And so that could be huge. You were spinning out a scenario, whereas, people could say, I lost my ID, and they say, no, it's still being used.
Yeah.
You must be the fake one, right? Who does the ID becomes actually more real than?
I mean, maybe we could have our palms just have palm readers everywhere.
Well, okay, let's go to the next step now. What about having your ID chip implanted on your body, right? In your wrist or behind your ear or whatever. And then I think we could go one step further than the Japanese, right? That would be your cash card and your ID card, and maybe your phone. I don't know, right? Right, but it's all like right there.
I mean, I think it's impractical in terms of, in terms of having.
Yeah, but in 5 years it
something-
may not be.
I don't know. Still, it's a radiation chip in your body, so I wouldn't want that.
Well, it's not that far away from this, right?
Yeah, it's no.
Right. Does that scare you? Is there anything about biochip implants for identification and cetera purposes that bothers
They're already
you?
doing it with dogs. You can get your dog implanted with a chip, and
Well-
then when you lose your dog, you call this company up, and they'll tell you right where your dog is.
So that's
Wow.
that's just one step from the government tracking your every movement. And if, we're almost getting into, sort of science fiction realm, but the reality is if the government wanted to find out where you were, it would be much easier for them to do that. And then we get into a whole kind of, living under.
Okay, let's say, government needs money. Let's say the government had the records of everything you purchased in your life. Don't you think that would be interesting to corporate entities so that they could, determine how to appeal to you? And then when a web page comes up, it doesn't just come up with an ad that's linked to that web page, but actually linked to you, Sam Ricker. Oh, this is Sam Ricker. Okay, let's show him collector cars and home gardening.
See,
Right? Would that bother you at all?
what I really want with this is I want these informations tracking me, but I want the Facebook approach. I want to be able to limit what is being displayed
Shared with who?
and what is being shared with who. Because personally, I wouldn't mind if I had access to everything I have ever bought. If somebody, I'm sure somebody has been keeping track of it, and if I had access to those records, I could use those. Or say if I lose my cell phone, I could actually pull up those records of my cell phone's GPS location and find where my cell phone is. So I think these things in the control of the user, in terms of me, would be very useful.
Well, think about how much easier collecting tax revenue would be if you had a digital record of all the money that Sam Ricker spent in the last 5 years, and he couldn't hide anything.
There'd be no question about it.
I mean, maybe we could finally get people to honestly pay their taxes. Not that you would ever not do that, but and so we have this contradiction of there are all these good things about it, but people don't want it. Once again, is this why? Or are there millions of people cheating on their taxes and they're afraid the government might find out? Or
they think that cheating is good?
well, cheating on taxes is okay when you do it, but bad when other people do it in a lot of instances. So.
I mean, I think even trying to introduce the notion of national identification to Americans is something completely strange because it's something we're not used to. But, as you point out, other countries around the world have it. But I think Americans have the more negative view of it. I mean, during, in the USSR, there were travel restrictions on where you could actually go, and you had to present all these papers, and you had to prove, what you were doing and where you were going. So I think, this is just the high-tech version of that. This is the government's, people's natural distrust of the government leads them to believe that they're not going to, it's not going to create more freedom, it's going to impede on it.
Yeah, because usually the argument goes, well, this will hurt the criminals, but as long as you're a law-abiding citizen, it won't hurt you, right? What do you have to be afraid of? Nothing. And I'm just curious, as we trace the history of this, why the American people are always against this. And so I'm just spinning out this, maybe that there, more people have things they want to hide than we believe.
Yeah, and I think it reflects the population of the U.S. Right now, the U.S. is mostly baby boomers. It's an older generation. They didn't grow up with all this technology, and I think as there's going to be more push for it because the younger generation understands this is good. This is good to have more connectivity in our ID systems, because it's more efficient, it saves more time, and I think as time moves on, this will come on.
Well, you always see how in movies or whatever, criminals like cash, right? Because you can
Yeah, you
spend
can't
it
track
and
it.
you can't track it. And I mean, would, you know, and we're talking about a national ID that becomes something more. I mean, that might eliminate the problem of money laundering. It might eliminate the problems of cash purposes,
Yeah.
purchases, and maybe it would be good if there was no cash.
I mean,
So everybody used a
the
magnetic
penny
thing.
costs more to make than it's worth.
Right. What do you think about that? Would you be in favor of a society that had no cash?
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
I definitely am. I use a card to buy everything. And I just have, you know, because I have the instant record. I can always go back to the website of my credit card company, and it's on there. And, you know, some people, like, I mean, my parents would, you know, they just think that this is like something to be afraid of. You know, something, you know, what if you say something on the phone? They might hear you. But nothing ever has
What
happened
do you
to
feel,
any of
Sam?
my
Do
friends.
you fear a cash-free economy?
Well, I mean, you know, we are moving towards that with credit cards, but cash is still necessary for transactions that are not within a structured setting. I'm not talking about illegal ones, I'm just talking about personal ones. So I think it is, you know, some people don't carry cash at all nowadays, but I think there's still a need for it no matter what.
Okay. All right. Here's the big question at the end of this discussion of national ID. A lot of people want it, and Americans seem afraid of it. Would you personally want to have one national ID, not to serve the money function and everything, but one function, that's my ID for everything? And we'll start with you, Jacob Klein.
Yeah, I would like one. It'd be really convenient. It'd be nice to be able to monitor where my ID is being used and have that control so that, you know, I can see, oh, somebody's using my card somewhere else. So that's how I'd envision the system.
Sam Ricker.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, I don't mind the current system we have now, and if it means a few travel hassles on do I present a passport or a birth certificate, I think, you know, keeping these things separate from one another does, you know, reduce the risk of someone actually, you know, stealing your identification totally. So until the system is in place that's entirely foolproof, I don't want the government to know, you know, have everything about me.
I say, Big Brother, stay away. I don't need these. I've got a big wallet. I'm used to carrying it with a bunch of different cards. And that's the way it is. Because when information is centralized, then it becomes more dangerous in its use. Well, thanks a lot for watching this week's edition of Flashpoint. Don't forget,
Think for yourself.